Hi, Thelma. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Jabulo. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. Eh?
I know, and finally it's happening. Yeah, we are here now.
Yes, great, awesome. So I wanna start this conversation in by transporting us back to St. Mary's Shtumbisa, where you grew up, and just maybe share a little bit more about your upbringing and how it has led you to become the entrepreneur that we know now.
Okay. Well, my upbringing, I remember maybe from stories that people share with me that I was a fast runner. I was born in St. Mary's, then we moved to Zingeza 4 in
Yes.
Chitumbisa, where I grew up until like 11 when I was in grade 7. Then we moved to Waterfalls. So I remember in Chitumbisa, I went to Ndangariro Primary School. And when I was younger, I would give the maids a run for their money because I didn't like bathing, apparently. So what I remember, I was a runner, I was a fast runner, and I was always surrounded by family, like my mother's brother, Sekuru, used to look after me. Maybe when the maid would go on holiday, or maybe you know how it's like sometimes my maids they just quit for no apparent reason. So I was always surrounded by family, my tetes, my dad's sisters. So I'm really grounded in family because there's the kind of setup that we grew in, the importance of being there for each other. So for me, even as I am right now, my family comes first. They're really important to me, and I've got a really great support system around me. So I remember sometime around grade 5. I think my early memories of my childhood is from maybe grade 4, grade 5. My mother was also a teacher in the school that I was at. And I think in grade 4 and grade 5, she became my teacher. I don't even know the
Yeah.
reason why. She decided to take up that class, but she was hard on me and my friend. Like any little mistake, she was on to us. And then grade 6, I was passed to a different teacher, but that was the most difficult time. Those 2 years were really the most
Yeah.
difficult time of my life because you're a child, you're trying to be rebellious, and your mom is your teacher. Because I remember there was this one incident that we got naughty at TM uh, TM Chitungwiza. No, we did something there that I'm not yet able to share, but I probably share the story. Yeah, she gave us a hard beating in front of the whole class. So
Yeah.
I was then made a prefect. I don't know why I was made a prefect. I was pretty disciplined as a child. But I don't know whether because my mother was a teacher there or because I was really an exemplary student. But I was made a prefect grade 6 and grade 7. And also, what I remember was because I'm dark skinned, and I remember also being bullied for that from as far back as when I was around 5, 6 years. So I grew up with that um, stigma, if I can call it that, because of my complexion. So I was really shy and quiet. And I think it contributed to how I became an introvert. Even now, I'm still working on it, trying to step out from that because now I'm a leader. I need to be charismatic. I need to, um, show up. You motivate your team and all of that. And as an introvert, it's a bit difficult. So I'm still work in progress on that. So I think for my upbringing, basically that's what I can say. Surrounded by love, supportive family. My mother was a teacher. My dad used to work for Ferrari. He was a fireman, and then he went into business. And he was an entrepreneur like me. He was a risk taker. So I think that's where I borrow a lot of who I am as well. He was my mentor. And now here I am.
Yeah, awesome. Maybe it takes back to the bullying. How were you able to cope with that? Did you have some sort of way of coping with that,
Well,
fighting that?
I didn't know, I'm a child in Chitungwiza. You don't know what to call that. You understand? But you just feel like you're different. No one wants to play with you. And you're growing up, you're getting into your teenage years, you're trying to what adolescence, right? You start liking boys, and you feel like boys don't like you because of how people remind you that you're not beautiful because you're dark skinned. So I didn't know what to call that. I didn't even share with my family. I don't know if they were aware that I was going through that. I remember even in high school, one of the girls later on, I think when I was in Form 3, when she was in Form 4, she was like, when you first came, when you were in Form 1, I thought you were a banned victim. You'd been bent. I'm like, wow. So for me, I'm like, okay, so people, when they look at me, they just see charcoal black, So I didn't know what it was, where we're coming from, from the ghetto. No one talks about that. No one talks about bullying. No one talks about issues like that. So you don't know what it is. But I developed, I don't know what you call it in English, but where I come from, like I'm obsessed with bathing. I'm obsessed with with scrubbing myself because I thought maybe if I bath enough, if I bath twice a day, if I scrub myself, maybe I might, turn lighter or something like that. So I'm obsessed with how my environment is like this to be tidy and all of that. So I didn't know what it was, but I think my parents at one point they could tell because something was going on because I was constantly looking for different brands of skincare products to use. And I was going through puberty as well. So at one point, my parents were like, no, you know what? You're beautiful. You don't need to be using all of that. But I couldn't explain really why I wanted those products. And my mom would say, you've got a beautiful nose. Yeah, come in, you've got a beautiful smile, beautiful eyes, and all of that. So I think for them as well, they didn't know what it was because my dad was coming from Uzumba. My mom was coming from Watsomba. They'd gone to the Liberation War struggle. They did not have that exposure as well to help me process it. So they didn't know, in as much as I had a supportive family, they actually didn't know what I was going through, what I was going through, and what I was going through in me and how to help me. So yeah, I think they did in as much as what they understood. Yeah.
Okay. So how have you been able to cope with it now? Now that you're older and you also kind of can contextualize what was happening to you and can sort of make sense of it. Would you say that you have been able to manage that better, or does that still haunt you to this day, or it's something that you have been able to completely get over?
I would say throughout high school, and until maybe when I was around 22, 23, I still had that in me, that as not having self confidence. I was very aware, like self conscious, whenever I would step into any room. So I think until the time when I went to university, okay, I went to university and then I stopped. When our economy changed, and then I went to Malawi for almost 2 years, and then I came back to study in Zimbabwe. So that moment now, maybe because a lot of the people that I'd grown up with had already graduated, uh, there was like new people, a sort of new people. I was not with my colleagues. I made a conscious decision. I don't know how it came about, but I felt like I was getting a new fresh start because I went to university at formally to finish my studies at around 22, 23. So most of my age mates had almost finished. A lot of them had graduated. So I'm like, no one knows me. No one knows where I'm coming from. No one knows my story. So it was like a complete new page that I was turning. And I kind of like made a conscious decision that I was going to write it the way I wanted it to be. So when I started university at Women's University in Africa, I made a conscious decision. The first thing that I did, we were asked to volunteer if anybody wanted to be the class representative. I do not know where it came from, but I was the first one to raise my hand for some reason, and my life completely changed from that moment. So I'd not really processed it, but I just said, no one knows me. And apparently, one of my friends from high school was in the same stream with me. She was the only person, but she was kind of like a
Because
friend. Yeah, so she
okay,
was kind of like a friend as well. So she's actually seen me evolve. She's actually seen like the whole journey from where I was coming from and where I was in that moment and where I am now. I'm really grateful for her. She's my best friend. So I think that was the turning point. And to say it's completely gone, I don't think it's completely gone because this is something that I carried for years. This is like something that I was a part of me for years. So I do have moments where I doubt myself a bit, like imposter syndrome, where you think, okay, am I good enough? Are people thinking what I'm thinking? Do people know my story and all of that? So it pops up that animal pops up here and there, but I manage it better now. Say, you know what? Here I am. I'm qualified. People see something that I don't even see myself. So, and the validation that's also coming from the work that we are doing, it kind of helps also to give me that extra confidence. But completely gone more, but it's not as bad as it was back then.
awesome. So would you have any kind of like specific advice to a young lady, maybe in Shitungwiza, who might have gone, who's maybe going through something similar to what you went through, and doesn't know how to kind of escape or navigate that? What would be your advice for someone who's going through that gap?
I think definitely for a young person, it's quite difficult to do it alone, honestly. So I think if you can look for a community, that can give you that support, it's very important. Because for me, look, the kind of like turnaround came only when I was like 23 years old. So at the moment, we're looking at maybe somebody who's 18 years old. And that's the moment when you're maybe to make mistakes, you know. And a couple of days ago, I was actually thinking and laughing to say, because I was so insecure about myself. And at that time, going through adolescence, you need attention from boys. It's natural, we go through that as girls, as boys. And at that moment, I would kind of like settle for any attention that I would get because I thought I was not good enough. So it's really important for, um, I think I would say it's really important for the older people who are with that girl or with that boy, because I think even for boys, you can actually go through bullying, right? So I think it's important for the older people around the young men and women to provide that support, to provide that reassurance. There's a joke that used to go around about how people can actually, give themselves away for a two-pizza, chicken and chips. So it's important for us adults to speak positively into the lives of the young men and women who are around us. As parents, it's our responsibility because now we are woke parents, right? We've got all this technology, social media at our disposal. These issues are now at in our faces. So it's really up to us to speak into the lives of the young men and women. And for the young men and women, um, time goes by so fast, and it's really up to you to map out your life. At 18, really, I didn't know that I was going to have a business. At 18, I didn't
Yeah.
really know how my career was going to take off. I knew, like, yeah, I don't want to work for somebody because I'm not an early riser. That's as far as I knew. But how the business was going to look like. But I think now there are a lot of people who are doing career advice. There are a lot of people who are advocating for young men and girls. So I think if we can just do more, because we've got the experience, we can actually help that young 18-year-old girl or boy.
Oh, awesome. So much wisdom there. So you obviously talk about how your faith is important to you and has been instrumental in your journey. Maybe take us back to that kind of first spiritual encounter that you had and how it has essentially defined you as a person today.
Right. So with me, I'm the middle child. We had three girls from my mom's side, and I've got
Okay.
a brother from my dad's side, but we don't really differentiate ourselves. It's just yeah. So with my parents, with me they were a little bit relaxed. I don't know. They let me just run free for some reason because I think it's one of my characteristics that I've developed further as I've become more aware of it. Like what I want, I go for it. Like sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Like if I set my mind on something, I'm going to work towards achieving it. Like I'm a big achiever, I'm a result oriented. So with my parents, with me, um, there's no church that I've not gone to except Seventh Day Adventist. That one they said
Oh,
no.
that's my church.
Oh, serious.
So whatever you're going, be careful about your next words now.
Yeah, I'm gonna be very careful. No, nothing bad, nothing bad.
Yeah.
But even church I wanted to go, apparently, my parents were like, oh, okay, you can go. Okay, you can go, you can go. For some reason, because my dad, growing up, didn't really go to church. And my mom, I don't know where she was. She was there, but I don't remember her going to church. So we had my mom's friends. They used to go to celebration. So my mom and my dad would be at home on Sundays, and then I'd go with my mom's friend to church to celebration Chitungwiza, the one close to Chikwana. And then my mom they started going to Methodist in Zimbabwe, but because I'd been used to just choosing where I wanted to go, it was difficult for me because they said, okay, now everyone is now going to Methodist. And Methodist was next to celebration. So I really
Okay.
had no option. But then I had the opportunity to choose where I wanted to go. I think they just said as long as she's pursuing God, okay. And then seventh day, there's just like, because you guys are known to be extremists, you know, you know
Well, we
what
can
people
have
say.
that conversation some other day. But yeah, I'm aware
You
of
know
the
what
stereotypes. Yeah.
is that stereotyping, yeah. So person is like, this one no. So yeah, my mom's sister goes to Zayoja. So when we would go for holidays in Mutare, because that's where we were staying in Watsomba, we would go to Zayoja. So I experienced like different denominations, different churches and way of doing things. So when I would go back home after the holidays, I would continue going to Zayoja. And also we stayed with my cousin, my mom's daughter, because she grew up in Zayoja, she would go to Zayoja when she would to our house. So I'll just take along with her. And then I remember, Zayoja, they've got these conferences that they do. And we went to the one in Chitungwiza. I don't remember the name, the one in Chitungwiza. Yeah, the big church in Chitungwiza. The name is just escaped my mind. That's where we went. It was a youth event, and I was in grade 7.
Okay.
So I matured pretty fast. Yeah. So we went there and it was like a full day event. Uh, we were ministering and then we were praying. So what I like about Zayoja is how they teach you to pray for yourself, you know. So and that's why I like it so much. So yeah, we went all day, we had teachings and then we just in the moment we're praying, and then that's when I spoke in tongues. I remember that very well when I was in grade 7. That's the first time I spoke in tongues. So for me, I would never forget an experience like that. I really can't explain it. So from then on, from one, I went to a Catholic school. I went to St. Dominic's. It changed. So pretty much for 4 years, I was a Catholic. And at that time, it was just like routine. With Catholics, you sing, you do your communal prayers. You don't really pray alone. But there was this other place we had. We would call it. It was called grotto. Yeah, where you go maybe before lessons or after lessons before study, and then you just go and kneel and pray as an individual. So I would do that when I was at St. Dominic's. I would go there in the park, I'll read my Bible, I'll pray at the grotto and all of that. So in as much as I was not really getting that, what do you call it, apostolic church kind of setting where you come together and people are in the spirit, people are praying. I had those intimate moments alone. So I've always
Okay.
been spiritual that way. Yeah. And yeah, that has been my spiritual journey.
And
For
and how
football,
has that shaped you as an entrepreneur? Because as an entrepreneur, there's sometimes when you get to dead ends and things are not moving, accordingly. But there's something that kind of then catches you those moments. In your case, was that, or is that your faith that kind of serves that purpose?
with entrepreneurship, definitely things get hard a lot. So you need somewhere where you are anchored, somewhere where you get your faith restored. Say, okay, you're going through this, but you're going to be fine. So people will believe in different things. So for me as an entrepreneur, my faith is kind of like my saving grace. When the chips are down, I'm like, but how did I even begin this journey? How did this business idea come to me? It was through God. So whatever I'm going through, God has a reason. There's a reason for it. So I'm not. I've grown really spiritually to say, even that moments, because I'm still a human being. I get the moments when I get anxious. I'm like, okay, this needs to happen. We need this deal to go through. And I catch myself to say, wait, why are you anxious? Because, we were taught, God says, do not be anxious for anything, in everything, with prayer and supplication, let your
Yeah.
request be known to. Yeah. So it helps me in those moments where I'm anxious, where I'm stressed, to just say, God has this. And there are moments when I act in my own capacity sometimes, and then you realize, oh, when things go wrong, that was me. I did not put God first in this. So my faith has actually helped me through that. But I would be honest to say it's not easy, you know, um, believing in God, and then with our economy, the way things are, and also the challenges that you come across. So a lot of times we are tested, we are shaken, we are moved. And I experienced that when my dad passed away. I stopped believing for almost a year, and I wasn't praying for almost 2 years after my dad passed away, because I never saw that coming. And it's the one thing that I prayed for. Say, if anything, God, I need my dad alive, and it didn't happen. So for me, I'm like, what's the point of all of this? If the one person who was my support system as well, like who had a major role in my life, is no longer there. What's the reason for all of this? So for almost 3 years, since 2021, I think up to now, this year, I'm still trying to find my balance. I'll be honest with that.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. So you mentioned, I think in the beginning, that you are introverted, and do you consider that as a superpower? How has that served you, as a leader and an entrepreneur? Do you think that's a plus?
Absolutely. It's a plus. Because what it
Okay.
does, what it helps you do is to be able to analyze situations. When I get into a room, because I'm extra
Yeah.
sensitive to environments, I'm able to discern. So I think it's a gift of discernment. I can read the room, I can read people, I can um, understand energies of what's going on. So yeah, I get in a room. I do not announce my presence. I'm not a I don't know what you call it. Those leaders who come in and you feel their energies and all of that. I'm more on the calm, quiet side where I'm looking, I'm
Okay.
seeing opportunities, and it has also helped me to see opportunities because I was having a conversation with a colleague a week ago, and she was like, "Tom, I really need to
Yeah.
understand how do how do you come up with these ideas? How do you think about these things?" So for me, I'm really aware of my environment because I take my time to understand, okay, what's going on? What is this person saying? Before I respond. So it's a plus and also it's a minus because um, we've got different types of leaders. There's that leader who comes into a room and gets everybody going like that. So I was reading a book, um, which book am I was reading this other book. Sorry, the title has just gone away from me. I'm currently reading a book on teams. It's about effective teams, and it was speaking about
Okay.
how to build your team and what you need to do as a leader. So you need leaders who are enthusiastic, like who bring positive energy, who get people going. Like, okay, this is something that I actually need to work on. So how do I balance that? Because I really don't want to lose that gift of discernment as an introvert as well. So yeah, it's a plus in some instances and also a minus where you need to actually be bold and not be shy about who you are and your achievements. You need to really come out and be an extrovert. But with me, I'm still maybe 40% with getting there to being that kind of, hi guys, how you doing? Kind of kind of
Yeah.
leader. Yeah.
Yes. Nah, you. So, you're in the same league with Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates. Who else dropped out of college? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the league that you're in. And what was your experience with that? How did you navigate that? And what did your parents think about that decision?
Sorry, I didn't get the question. The decision too.
Now, how did your decision to drop out of college? So I was saying you are in the same league with Zuckerberg and Bill
Okay.
Gates.
I didn't drop out because I was intelligent or I had a brilliant idea. No, I dropped it because we couldn't afford university fees.
Okay. But yeah, but we're not gonna take away your status. You're still that. Because
I'm
look
still
at you
that
now. Yeah.
take it. If I'm like Zuckerberg,
Yeah.
I take it. Yeah, it was in 2018 around that time. Yeah. And if you remember, well, in Zim, there was the US dollar, you had inflation, um, prices were changing like every minute. You ask the price of bread now, you're told it's 10,000. And then you go back home to get the 10,000 in your bag, and they're like, "Nah, it's now 15,000." That was the that was the
Yeah.
era. Yeah, yeah. So it was not really by choice, but I think everything happens for a reason. And at the end of the day, um, we are where we are supposed to be, because I had a moment where I felt like, oh my God, I'm so behind. My age mates have graduated. They are now working. They've got jobs. Some of them, they actually found jobs in banks straight from A level, and I'm like, I'm so behind. And I'm now looking at my life and what I'm doing now, and I'm like, hmm. am I really behind?
Yeah,
And
but
so
navigate that? Because we often always have that kind of syndrome where we compare ourselves to other people, right? To say, so and so maybe drive this car, maybe I should also start upgrading my car. How have you managed to like stay in your lane and sort of focus on what you believe your purpose is without, kind of being focusing on all the side shows and distractions?
Um, well, I think it comes from this one statement that my dad always used to say. My dad said, um, "Atanga hapedzi nzira," like those who have gone first, they do not um, take everything away. Like they don't they don't block whatever is supposed to happen, what follows, you know, like they don't
Yeah.
take everything. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And my mom also says, Atanga hanzi idvantipinde. Like you can't say those who have gone before you, hey, excuse me, I'm coming, I'm coming, I'm coming. So those two statements from my parents are the ones that kind of like made me see to say, okay, um,
Yeah.
my friends are now in second year because I took a gap year as well. I'm like, I need to figure myself out before I jump to university. So I was already 1 year behind, and my age mates were in
Yeah.
their second year university. And then when I started, I had to drop out. And when then I came back to finish, they were finishing, they were graduating, they were getting married, and all of that. But then what my parents raised me to know to say, you know what, let them go. You have got your own different path that you are taking,
Yeah.
your own journey that you are taking. And my sister Majita, she always says comparison is the thief of all joy.
People.
So
Sure,
as
yeah.
much as I'm seeing all of that happening, like, hey, Lingi is married. Hey, she's working there. Hey, he's driving this car. Because you see those things. But I never
Yeah.
said to myself, I want what they have. I never got
Yeah.
to that point. I felt like I've got a different path that I'm supposed to take. So I think that's how I managed that.
Awesome. And so you started off with pies and chips, was it? Is that what you started? Was that your first business, first of all, before
Let me think. Was that my first
Wait, was it
business?
burgers? Was it
Yeah.
burgers or
I think I can't say it was my first business per se, but it was my
okay.
first taste of money. The first time I tasted money was when
Okay.
I was in
Wait, and
grade.
were you making them or were you
No,
making the stuff yourself?
okay. Um, for the pies came later. The first time I
Oh, okay.
actually, yeah, the first time I earned money, like I worked for it, was when I was in grade 5, 6, and we'd gone for holiday. Kumusha, I come from Rewa.
Okay.
If you've passed Toko, yeah, there's a growth point called Cornerstone. So that's our growth point. So my first uh, money that I earned was when I went for holiday, and my dad's sister, was selling her growth point, tomatoes, because that area is known for horticulture. Right. So holiday, we didn't have anything to do. So we'd go with her and spend the whole day at the point. And what I then did was like, you guys, you can sit. And then I ran with the dishes of tomatoes when buses are coming, when cars are coming. It was holiday. I think it was April holiday. So a lot of people, they'll go for holidays, talk and all of
Yeah.
that. So I would carry my dish of tomatoes and I ran to buses. Imagine a child from Harare, Msichana wa Harare. But
Yeah.
I was a child. I didn't know what shame was. Like kunyara, what was kunyara at that age? I didn't know. So I'll run
Yeah.
with my tomatoes, my onions, my carrots, and I was selling them. So at the end of the day, I would get, how much was it? it was enough for me to buy a pork pie. I think it was, I don't
Oh,
know, I
okay.
don't remember how much it was, but $2, the pangolin one, the two, yes, it
Okay.
was that pangolin, yes. That's what I would get at the end of the day. So I would be selling for different people, and then at the end of the day, they'll give me $2 pangolin. Then I would buy my pork pies. So that's when I developed my relationship with Coco then. So at one point, I would make so much money that I would even buy like 3 pork pies. And then one, I would eat it on my way home. The other one, I would save it for my go-go, for my grandmother. And the other one, I would share it with my sister and everyone else. Yeah. So that's when I first understood that, you know what, these hands, they can work. You can get what you want using your hands. And it felt good. Like I was only in grade 5, 6 then. And then fast forward, there was nothing that I did in between. And then I got a new lease to life. I started university, and I told myself that I was going to do things differently. So I'm like, okay, I get there at university. We were learning at Tawan, Women's University was using Tawan as a campus near
Okay.
Showground.
All right.
Yes. So
Yeah.
I
No
get
doubt.
there. I get there, and there's no food. We spend the day at school. There's no way to buy food. The introvert in me saw an opportunity, and the 5-year-old me who didn't know any shame was like, "There's no shame in selling something. I'm not using my
Yeah.
body. I'm not asking anyone for money. So what do I do? Uh, Let me sell burgers because at least you can still eat them. You know, even if they're not hot, you can still have a burger and then a pie as well. So I called this other guy. He's now a pastor. We used to go to church together. So he was working for a company called Super Pies at that time. And when I spoke to him, I'm like, can you teach me? Because I didn't know how to make pies. I used to bake and all of that, but I didn't know how to make pies. So I was like, can you teach me how to make pies? And then he came and taught me how to make pies. So after school, I would not you not see me in town doing custom rounds. That's what we used to call it. You not see me in
Custom
town doing
rounds. Yeah.
custom. I'd go home straight after class, and then I prepare my bagels. I knew how to bake, so I was selling bagels, I was selling muffins, and I was selling pies. So I would alternate, like this day, Monday is pies and muffins, and then Tuesdays it's bagels and muffins. And I'll just alternate like that. So if you have seen those plastic containers with a handle, I think they're written Otimo or something like that. I bought my plastic container, and I'll sit with it in because I used to use combis at that time. I'll sit with it in combi, put it on my lap, and I'll carry it to school. I was not even embarrassed. At the end of the day, I would make about $20 because I would sell the burgers for $1. So I knew exactly how much I was going to get at the end of the day. So if I
Yeah.
carry 10 burgers and 10 pies or 10 burgers and 20 muffins, that's like a cool $20, easy $20 on a day. At the end of the week, I had $100. But I removed my cost
Yeah.
of ingredients.
Awesome.
So give or take, I had $40 as a first year student. So I never lagged when I was at university per se. My parents never bought me clothes and they never bought me a phone. And I never succumbed. You know how it's like when you go to university as girls, you know, the stories that come out at university. I never was subjected to that because I was already earning my own money. So later on, I then got the number for Super Pies, and then I approached them for a partnership for them to supply me with pies. So I stopped making the pies, and I don't know if you remember them, if you came across it. They used to make these huge pies that had a lot of meat. So
Yeah.
I pivoted. Instead of making them, I was now just supplying the pies at school. Yeah, so that was my first business. Yeah.
Awesome. So maybe now transition us to what you have now and what we're building with Beyond Borders and how that started. And if there are any lessons that you learned from the pie business that you took with you to what you're building.
The pie business actually grew. It grew, and then I expanded to the main campus. I actually
Oh,
employed
that's
somebody.
great.
Yeah, I then actually employed somebody. I also got into a partnership with Baker's Inn. I was given a warmer by Baker's Inn.
Really
Yes.
interesting.
So they would actually deliver for me. So, and then I was attending class as well. So I had an employee who was selling whilst I was in class. At the end of the day, I'll do my books. So what I learned from that experience was importance of record keeping. You know, I
Yeah,
actually had a file. I threw it away, I think last year, but I took pictures of it. I actually had a file. I was recording everything, my sales, my expenses. I knew my profit, I knew my losses, and I also developed the habit of banking money. I never used to keep cash, so I actually opened a bank account with Stanbic. My salesperson, when she was finished at the end of the day, if she had time, she'd pass through the bank or in the morning before she came to work. She knew she had to make deposits. So I developed a healthy relationship with money. I developed discipline from that, and then transitioning to where we are now. Um, it was not planned. What I had in mind was, okay, after university, I've seen how this works, how running a kind of like a canteen, a restaurant type, because I was now selling a lot of things. That I was selling fresh chips, hot dogs, a lot of things. So for me, I really love that. And also I taught myself through YouTube how to bake. So I was also doing cakes on the side for birthdays and all of that. So I'm like, this is what I want to do. After I finish school, I'm going to finish, I'm going to open a bakery. So I'm going to do that. After I finished university and the business was still running, but I was not like the at campus. I don't know what went wrong. It felt like sales dropped and I found myself at zero. I used up all my savings trying to sustain that business. And I'd also opened in Masasa another one. There is a bar next to that food court in Masasa. So I had an opportunity and they're like, oh, the bar, they like Jinyenze, Matumbu, Akagochwa, and all of that. So I now had two locations. So I think where I failed with that was proper research and I just invested heavily without really testing the market. Say, okay, maybe I was supposed to get a smaller stove, gas stove, a smaller item, and just test out the market and see. But I just went all in without proper research,
yeah,
and it fell. So I actually asked Chris to say, okay, this was my plan after university. What do I do now? So my key takeaways
yeah,
from that were research. So after that, like, okay, so what do I do now? Like, I don't have any other plan. And then my dad was like, you know what, this happens. He spoke to me about it. And then I was called back at Women's University to come back as a graduate trainee. Was I was very involved in a lot of activities as a student. So people were seeing that. People were noticing me. They noticed me. They appreciated me. So like, can you come as a graduate to me in the in the marketing, the business development, marketing and PR department, of which I graduated with a banking finance major. So I'm like, okay. And one of the things my dad didn't want me to do was to study marketing. I wanted to study marketing. He was like, no, marketing, you can't study marketing because everyone is studying marketing through banking and finance. And then I found myself
yeah.
working in a business development and marketing department. So that was my first kind of like job. I was a graduate trainee. And then I was there, and some of the people didn't understand how I was given that opportunity because there was no advert, there were no interviews. It was just kind of like I was kind of like headhunted. So there were a lot of internal issues going on, back and forth. And then I got an opportunity to work in Mashingo at Reformed Church University. I went for for the job interview. I was given the opportunity to go and work there. So a lot of things were happening, like in my life at that moment, personally and career-wise, things that I didn't expect to happen. So I then decided to take that job and to move to Mashingo. So it was kind of like an escape for me when I went to Mashingo. So business, I threw business outside and like, what, this is what's there now. Let me go and work. So I worked for almost 3 years. And then while I was working, I'm grateful for that because it gave me exposure to systems, to politics, workplace politics. It gave me exposure to how you conduct yourself because I was working in the business development and marketing department, and it was under the vice chancellor's office. So it gave me exposure to how you interact with high level people because we used to host the ministers, we used to host other VCs and all of that. So it really gave me that needed experience at that level, preparing reports because I was reporting to the fundraising committee as well. So I'm really grateful for that exposure. And then there's how this comes in now. We wanted to buy a solar system for my parents. I never wanted to get into logistics. I never wanted to deal with vehicles because my dad had gone through that. And I did not like his experiences because you'd come back from school and when you get home, you would see engine, you pass, and you'd know, yeah, it's going to be a tight week. And it was a Tuesday, and that is where your transport money is supposed to come from. So it was stressful for us as kids, seeing that. So I'm like, anything to do with trucks, to do with vehicles, I'm out. So I didn't even know that maybe that experience was actually preparing me for this business now. Like I mentioned earlier, everything happens for a reason. We are where we are supposed to be. So I'm working, I'm in Mashingo, I'm working. And then my parents say they want a solar system from China. So I was also, hustling. The entrepreneur in me didn't really want to die. So I was doing orders for, it's more or less like what runners do. You take orders for people. You buy in South Africa, it comes and all of that. But now I was doing that with China. I was buying for individuals from China. And at least I was employed. And then would buy, I was in Mashingo. My sister, who was my business partner as well, and who's our chief operations officer, was in Harare. So she'd get the orders, she'd get the money, and she would do the kind of like the logistics of the money in the order deliveries. And then I'll do the marketing, the business development, and then the ordering as well. So that's how in 2019, my parents wanted a solar system from China. So we ordered them, and then we approached the people who were doing the freight forwarding and customs clearing on the transportation them to bring on behalf of my parents. And that was sometime in June, July. So they told us like the container was going to be loaded in August. And we'd sent the solar system to their warehouse. And come August, the container was not loaded. There was no communication. September, no communication. And trying to talk to them to just find out like, okay, what's happening? When do we expect the container to be loaded? And we received a lot of backlash from that service provider. And for me, and like coming from a marketing background, I understood, I had an understanding of customer relationship management. So I'm like, okay, this is how this is happening. And also at that time, Rana, it was like paying off. We actually had a number of clients. So I just said to my sister, if this is how this space is, how informal. So it was very informal how things were being done. is there not an opportunity for us? Because I was coming from the corporate world where things were done differently. There was like a high level of professionalism. I'm like, this means there's a market that is not being served if this is how things are being done. Can we keep that
Yes.
market? You know, um, that's how Beyond Borders came into place because we already had clients that we were serving through procurement services. Because at the time we were just doing procurement services,
Yeah.
but we didn't really know that we're doing procurement services. And there was a market that really needed transparency, that appreciated formalized systems, accounting, that appreciated the traceability of their parcels, the communication, and all of that. So they actually said, okay, that research that I had not done when I expanded my um, big takeaway business, we then did the research on this business to say what things are not being done. What is it that clients want in this space? And Beyond Borders took off.
Awesome. So what have been some of, I mean, you assumed your first leadership role as a prefect, as you mentioned before. And so can you share maybe tips to fellow entrepreneurs that are also running businesses and on how to manage teams? What kind of a leader are you, and how do you manage your people?
Leadership is a self-discovery journey. I think that's what I would begin by saying. Because in my in the three roles that I remember as a leader, like when I was a prefect in primary school, I was laid back, like there's nothing much to do except to go to ensure people are standing in line at assembly. There's not much involved. So you find like in the corporate world there are leaders like that who are just, cruising through. They're not really bothered their leaders, but they're just checking here and there if things are being done, you know. And then when I was a class representative, um, I was really invested because I'd made a conscious decision, like of what I wanted. But at one point, I felt because during that time at university when I was the class representative, I also got an opportunity to be selected to be on my own boss. It was an entrepreneurship program. So I had to,
Oh, interesting.
yeah, I had to go for that program for a while. So I had to write to the university to tell them I've been selected for this entrepreneurship program. It was aired on ZTV. So I had to leave my leadership role. And then when I came back, there was a new class rep. And what that taught me was to say there are actually people who be envying your position. And the moment that you step away, somebody's going to step in. Because even when I came back, things were different. Because I'm like, okay, I was gone for like half a semester and people, like, there was no discussion at all because there was no voting done. And it's not like I was expecting for me to come back in that role, but you can see the politics there. That maybe people were actually waiting for you to be gone or something like that because there was no conversation. Ah, you're back. Can you take over or something like that? But I had developed relationships with the lecturers. My interactions, I was very respectful. So for me, I was like, I don't really need that position sometimes. For me, leadership is about serving. You have to be it's kind of like a servant to the people that you lead. And once you do that, you're able to create relationships. So for me, like, I think that 2 years when I was the class rep, I was really a good leader. And it actually helped me even now. They still call me people from Women's University to say, can you come and deliver what, like, they have those, what do you call them, public lectures in classes.
Okay.
They still call.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's the impact that you need to have as a leader. And then coming to this role now, I just decided and woke up, I'm going to be a CEO. I did not have any leadership training for this position. So even for the other roles that I had, there was no training that went before stepping into that role. So it has been a journey of discovery because now we're dealing with a team. We've got different characteristics. There are people who are self-motivated. There are people who procrastinate. There are people who are just moonlighting. There are people who are just saying, okay, this is not just temporary, while they figure out their next move. So you have to evolve. You have to deal with all of those characters. So what you need to do as a leader is to keep learning, It's very important. Like I mentioned, the book that I'm reading, yeah, I remember the title is called Winning. But
Winning.
yeah, it's called,
I think we'll try and put the link in the
yeah,
description.
but the book is called Winning, by, what's his name? Yeah, the book is called Winning. So it's about teams, like how you build your teams, how you build a winning team. So you never stop learning as a leader, and you can't say, you know what? We were taught in school about democratic leaders, laissez-faire leaders. You can be all of that and none of it at the same time, because you're constantly dealing with different people who've got different characteristics, but you have to develop confidence as a leader. When things are, I think that's one of the most important things that you need. And then other things you can learn and unlearn as you go, but you need confidence because you get into crisis situations and your team is looking up to you, and you do not want to be the leader who's frantic, who doesn't know what to do. So you also need to be a leader who's not afraid to surround themselves with people who know more than you do. You actually need people who know more than you do as a leader. That's how you can win. Because if everything starts and stops with you, then why do you need a team? So I think that's what I would do
Yeah.
on leadership.
Well, thank you for that. I think as we wrap up, maybe can you share, one piece of advice that you got from your dad? Something that you've kept with you to this day.
One piece of advice that I got from my dad, right?
Yes.
My dad taught me this other saying, I love Shona. Maybe that's why I love Shona. Ukuthi iwachikupivata. I'm not sure if it's an animal. I don't know what it is. But what that means is if you want something, um, just lay low and go after what you need. You don't need to be loud. You don't need to be out there. Yeah, focus on what you want. Focus on your goals. Um, like like you don't know what you're doing. As long as you just go after what you want. My dad, I don't know if you saw a picture of a father that was wearing shorts at a wedding. There was a photo that went viral at one point of a gentleman who was wearing shorts at his wedding. My dad was that kind of man. He would not know where he fits in. He was just laid back, easy going. He's not that kind of man who would flash car keys when he gets to a place, hands in his pocket. So for me, I think that's where I get my character from. That's what reinforces my introvertedness, so to speak. So my advice is go after what you want and just be quiet and sleek and sly about it. Just move slowly until you reach where you want. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Thelma, for sharing all those words of wisdom and for giving us a sneak peek into your own journey. You know, I know a lot of people would be inspired by your story, and maybe just one piece of advice to entrepreneurs, and also share with us. I know you've already shared one book, but maybe just give us another book or some other reference that entrepreneurs can look at it. Something that has also been part of.
Okay. I think one of the books that I would recommend is The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Yeah, that one I remember the name.
Sun Tzu, yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
because business is war. It's only later in my journey that I realized that, you know, it's a war spiritually, you're being fought. Because if you're doing business well, it means you are coming out of poverty, you're changing people's lives. And the devil, you know, comes to kill, steal, and destroy. And he doesn't want you to have financial freedom. So you have to learn the art of war on all levels, you know, spiritually and physically.
Yeah.
And even, you know, you've got competitors as well. So you need to learn how and when to engage and to disengage. So I would highly recommend that book as well. And also for women entrepreneurs, I would recommend this book called for busy. There's a book called, I'm trying to remember the title, but it's about for busy women. Um, yeah, it's called for busy women. So it teaches you about spirituality and finding balance as a busy woman. Like I mentioned, sometimes you get home so tired, you can't even pray. You can't even pray for your children. You can't even pray for yourself. Um, and in the morning, your alarm clock goes off, and you're thinking about another day, and you just get up and then you start going about your day. So yeah, I think it's called for busy finding balance for busy women. So I'd really recommend that for women.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Thelma, again for sharing your journey with us, and hope to talk to you again soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much,
Cheers.
Lord. Thank you for your patience. I know we tried to schedule this like 2 or 3 times, so I'm happy. I'm grateful and I'm honored for this opportunity to speak with your audience and to just share my life and my journey in our business.